Wrong side. Hello and welcome to Useful Idiots. We are live for our Monday morning segment. Hi, Matt. How's it going?
Oh, I forgot to introduce you. That's okay. I'm Matt Taibbi, and this is Useful Idiots Monday morning edition. I've been wanting to do it that way the whole time, but yeah.
Okay. Let me change my. Whoops! I have my wrong thing on. That would be weird. Plug the Katie Halper show. Very inappropriate. Okay.
No, that's totally fine. You're allowed to do that.
No, it's weird on this show. No way. I'd never do that. You know.
So this is going to be a little uncomfortable because we're going to be behind the news cycle because we're talking about stuff that was on the news yesterday morning, whereas obviously the big story right now is Waukesha. We don't know a whole lot about what happened there. Actually, last night was kind of an amazing demonstration of how the internet is now faster than all the news agencies in digging stuff up. Of course, there was a lot of wrong stuff in there too, but that was pretty impressive. But we just don't know.
I guess we'll get to that this week, right?
We'll have to talk about it this week. We're behind the eight ball, and there's a lack of clarity about a lot of things there. So it's probably best not to talk about it too much. Right. But
until we get the chance to look at it, and then we'll obviously
bring misinterpret
all the clarity. Oh yeah, right. With a lot of clarity though, clarified misinterpretation.
Is it Waukesha or Waukesha?
I don't know. Waukesha.
I'm not from
Waukesha. Okay, it's not Waukesha. Well, maybe it is originally, but are these some indigenous names? Waukesha, Kenosha? I think they are, right?
America's an indigenous name. Massachusetts.
Well, not like Monticello.
Oh, well, that's
Monticello. It's actually there's a Monticello upstate New York, and that's Monticello. But then I guess the Virginia one is Monticello.
I see. Yeah. All right, welcome to Useful Idiots Monday morning edition. So yesterday on the news shows, do you want to start with the Buttigieg thing? Oh, it was weird.
Yeah, right. What we should get right. It's always you got to open the. What is it? Start the morning with a shot of Buttigieg.
This is a strange controversy that is being stirred up really early. But anyway, let's just take a look at the clip, I guess.
Yeah.
Every time something's written about the Vice President Kamala Harris's political standing, your name seems to be in every one of those articles. Has it at all impacted your relationship with the Vice President that it seems as if there's this narrative of a rivalry developing between the two of you?
Good point by Eric Ward.
Because she and I are part of a team that is disciplined and doesn't focus on what's obsessing the commentators. We're too busy with a job to do. She, as the leader in this administration, with her leadership role, and I and the president and everybody else in the cabinet and across the administration are laser focused on getting the job done. That would be demanding in any administration. But in one like this, where we have been assigned by the president to take on literally projects and legislation of generational significance, there's no room to get caught up in the parlor games. And I'm proud to be part of the Biden-Harris team.
All right, and then we probably should have shown the other clip. Well, let's look at the other clip too, because there was a sort of discussion about this too.
Yeah,
well, you see this up close. Are the stories about the vice president overhyped, or are they revealing something that a lot of people have been whispering about and it just finally went on the record?
There is a tension there. It's a tightrope, as you were talking about it. In some ways, when you talk to people in her circle, they say she hears this chatter, she knows that there are these concerns, she's trying to avoid that noise and focus on the work. They point to her trip to France. They talk about her hosting world leaders, doing speeches, and working on behalf of some of the legislative things. At the same time, we often hear President Biden talk about how Barack Obama chose him to be the front man on the Recovery Act years ago and how pivotal that was. Well, he didn't choose the vice president to do that for infrastructure. Pete Buttigieg is a part of that. Mitch Landrieu has been brought in, other cabinet officials. He did give her volatile topics like immigration and voting rights, which right now don't have the votes to move in legislative ways. So those are also magnets for more criticism from the right. So she has a portfolio that makes her perhaps drag in more criticism. And she's trying to not outshine the president. And at the same time, she is struggling with that noise. They say she's going to focus on working. She's going to focus on a good relationship with President Biden. Could he do more to help her? Perhaps he could.
Okay. What the fuck? Like, this is so we just started to see these stories. Like, there was a story in Politico.
Right.
I guess it was, but no, it was a Rich Lowry article originally, but for some reason it's in Politico. Oh no, it's right. It's a Rich Lowry story in Politico, but it starts off like this: the GOP has had plenty of reason for good cheer in recent months. And then blah blah blah. Nothing can compare though with the glad tidings of a potential showdown between Vice President Kamala Harris and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg to be Biden's successor in 2024. And here's the key phrase: should he decide not to run for re-election. And suddenly this is a thing. Oh, did you hear this? Like, it's like I'm seeing this phrase all over the place in the news.
What, should he decide?
Yeah, like how did the New York Post put it in a different way? Hang on a second. Something along the lines of, oh no, that's also a Rich Lowry story. But there's essentially this speculation that Biden might not run for re-election. Like, and you know, there were these rivalry stories that were all over the place. They were in CNN, Axios, all over the place.
Yeah.
And now we're doing Meet the Press segments on this, and they're answering questions about it. They're acting like WWE characters.
Are you surprised though?
Well, since when is it a thing that we're putting it out there that the president might not run again?
Who was it? Was it someone like David Axelrod or someone said something like that?
No, I mean, I don't know where it started. I don't know what the origin story of this is. I mean, if it's a Rich Lowry story, if it's the National Review,
right,
then why is Meet the Press giving it oxygen?
Well, there was, I don't have it at my fingertips, but there was a Democrat. I can't remember who it was. There was someone, you know who said something? Chris Dodd said something. And Chris Dodd was like a big Biden person. He said something suggesting, here, let me look it up. By the way, condolences to the person who was diagnosed with the spunt.
Someone who was diagnosed with a spunt. Is it operable?
I don't know. Let us know, guys. Anyway, but yeah, you're right. I mean, it is. You're saying that they're reporting. He did say that he was going to run for one term, right?
Did he say that?
That was in 2016, I think.
Look, the Democrats have. Somebody just mentioned Weekend at Bernie's in one of our comments.
Yeah.
That if Biden is breathing, they have to run him in 2024.
Yeah, right.
I mean, they would have Biden's. Weekend at Biden's, yeah. I mean, they would wheel him to a couple of states. You could have him like a little wire that made his hands go like this, you know.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have to run. He didn't run last time.
Yeah, basement Biden.
He doesn't need to do a primary. Right? If they don't have to have a primary unless someone wants to be a jerk about it.
Right. And like Kamala is just terrible. As we know, she's less popular than he is.
If she runs, it's a wipeout, and we get Donald Trump as president again.
Right.
Is that what everybody wants?
Mm-hmm. How old is he going to be? He just turned what, 79?
Trump?
No, sorry, Biden.
No, he's like 5,000 years old, of course, but it doesn't matter. Like, you know, this is the Soviet Union. You keep these people in office until they die, right. And then sometimes even a little bit after that.
Right, yeah, like Franco.
You know?
Yeah. Someone says, why is Biden better than someone else? Well, because there's no one who's going to replace him? Like, who would replace him? We're not saying he's good.
Why did the Democrats win in 2020 apart from COVID? Could anyone among our listeners raise their hands and give us the answer to that? Does anyone know the answer to that question? What was the big demographic reason that the Democrats won? Nope, nobody. It's because they had a 6-point gain among white males in 2020 versus 2016. So Donald Trump had allegedly his biggest base, had a big chunk of his support taken away by the one candidate in the Democratic lineup who was competitive with those voters. Now, for a million reasons that that don't make a whole lot of sense to me. I don't think he's legitimately like a working class.
Yeah,
he's not like a union person or anything like that. But they were smart to run him, right?
Yeah, and also obviously the media was very invested in blocking Bernie. But yeah, but you're talking about in the general, yeah.
In the general sense, their thinking was, we're going to rig it for Biden because he's the only person we think we can. Like they incorrectly thought that Hillary would walk to victory in 2016,
right?
Although she should have probably, but my God, I mean, Buttigieg is at least on the stump. Buttigieg is he's like legitimately good at campaigning. The first time I saw him, I thought he had a real shot. Then again, I thought the same thing when I saw Marco Rubio. And I'm not judging that based on their politics, but just on their ability
to connect to crowds.
Yeah, they're just good at the thing.
Yeah, right. What did we decide Buttigieg was, though? A woodchuck, right? So that was the first thing you thought. Then the second thing you thought, yeah.
Right, but I think I might have said that before I saw him in person.
Oh, the woodchuck thing?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. So he was able to overcome our really good woodchuck point.
Mm-hmm.
That's how good he is in person. Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, this is weird, wasn't it?
It is weird, but it is. I mean, I will say one thing is that it is true that it's funny how my friend of Katie Halper show, Shuja Hader, wrote a piece, Centrist Child Syndrome, about how both Buttigieg and Kamala Harris come from radical dads, and then they became major. Yeah, well, we know that. Well, like, okay, so Kamala Harris's dad, who did everything but disavow her, was a Marxist economist professor. Pete Buttigieg's dad was a Gramsci expert and translated Gramsci. So yeah.
Okay.
And it is true she gets stuck with the worst stuff.
She gets what?
Kamala is stuck with the worst assignments.
Well, if you were Joe Biden, would you want her on TV a lot?
No, well, no. Right, that's true. But I'd maybe want her not on TV a lot with things that were not so unwinnable. As we know, though, she does. I don't know, but not. I mean, what about some infrastructure? I guess he has to be the one behind that.
Yeah, they're giving him. I mean, yeah, I guess.
Well, immigration and voting rights are pretty hard to.
But she's
terrible.
Not exactly, an ambassador for America's immigration policy. You know what I mean? For the upside of it. And incidentally, did we forget that that story from earlier this year about their spouses hanging out together?
Whose spouses? Jill and
no, Buttigieg and Kamala.
Oh,
Wilson, can we see that Washingtonian story? This is from March.
Do not come. Do not come. Remember, she said that to people of Central America.
Yeah, exactly.
Guatemala in particular, yeah.
Chasten, Buttigieg, and Doug Emhoff hung out on Capitol Hill yesterday. Twitter freaked out accordingly.
Oh, I missed that. Oh my God. Tell me you live in DC without actually telling me you live in DC. Ran into Chasten, second gentleman. Yeah.
Strange, right? And then remember the whole wine cave thing?
Oh yeah. When Warren went after him for that?
Yeah, so that was Warren, but the place, which was called Hall Wines, which is known, apparently, according to the New York Times, is known for its Cabernet Sauvignon. They were supporters of Harris. They gave to her senatorial run before they donated to Buttigieg during the presidential run, which I guess is not that surprising. She was a Democrat. She was running for Senate. Probably they were raising money for her, but still, there's a little bit of cross pollination there. Did they just dislike each other personally?
I think a lot of people also see. Yeah, I think a lot of her supporters really hate him.
Why is that?
I think they think that he was too young and didn't have enough
Game of Thrones set. Sorry, go ahead.
That he didn't have enough experience under his belt, and that I think a lot of people think that he's had things handed to him on a silver platter. Fairly unfairly. That's, I think, he was mayor of a small town. I guess South Bend isn't a small town, but it's not. How old is he again?
He's small young compared to Mexico City, Hong Kong, and
New York City.
And New York, right?
Yeah.
It's small in the scheme of the whole cosmos.
Right.
Which is infinite.
That's true.
Well, depends on who you ask, right?
Depends on your definition.
The universe is continually expanding, I guess. Which means that South Bend is also expanding.
That's true, yeah.
I don't know. I find this story weird and kind of ominous because I've been operating under the assumption that unless Biden died, that he was going to run. Like if this is reaching the news, that means that people in Washington are talking about it. So it's either being floated,
right,
or something. And I don't know.
Remember when he lied, his campaign lied and said he got the endorsement of all these black leaders and they hadn't?
Buttigieg? Oh my God. Yeah.
Imagine. I mean, that was just such an insanely underreported on story.
Yeah. It was the Intercept that did it.
Yeah.
Ryan Grimm, right?
No one picked it up. Yeah.
Well, the two of them together are like an amalgam of everything that is the two biggest weaknesses of the Democratic Party. Like he can't get a black vote, right? Like he has incredible.
She doesn't
difficulty
either, though.
She has great difficulty with that, but she's also not getting,
any
independence.
Vote?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like
it's true. Yeah.
Which is odd because like the earlier version of her as the hanging judge, district attorney type candidate, or attorney general, maybe might have, but I don't know. Anyway, that's a weird story, wasn't it?
It's a weird story, yeah. It's almost isn't that weird. It's not quite an isn't that weird. It's a kind of like isn't that weird media critique.
Yeah. Let's keep our eyes on it because if that's in the news more, that means that people are that they're already signaling that Biden's not going to be there in 2024.
Right.
Because they usually have, the kind of, what do they call it? The sort of pre-primary process. I forget. I wrote about this in one of my books. Anyway, normally that starts like right after the midterms. So they have about a year to get this sorted out. But anyway, scary. All right. Should we, I guess we got to dive into the Rittenhouse stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So can we start with this Brian Stelter segment, which I thought it was interesting just because you could see that he was kind of looking for something. Stelter was kind of looking for a different answer and got one that I think was that I think was interesting and very similar to what I thought about it. But so of course I like it. But let's check out.
I think is the takeaway
here we go.
When it comes to the Rittenhouse verdict and the media.
Well, one of the takeaways is that I think the media dropped the ball. Parts of the media dropped the ball on covering this case from the start, because right from the start, there were a couple of things that were pretty immediately obvious. One was we knew what Wisconsin self-defense law was, and the other one was there was a lot of video evidence out there in the public domain. And what the video evidence showed was that Rittenhouse was being chased before he fired fatal shots, that he was knocked to the ground, he was attacked before he fired fatal shots. And if you knew Wisconsin self-defense law and you knew sort of the rules around open carry, then you knew he was going to have a strong defense. But what a lot of people did is they took the foolishness of being there, the recklessness of being there in and of itself, a 17-year-old armed with a rifle going to a riot, to social unrest. That's ridiculous. 17-year-olds shouldn't be doing that. And they conflated that with all that followed, and that's a big mistake. That's not how juries look at it. Juries look at the law, they compare the law to the facts, and under Wisconsin self-defense law, he had a strong defense. And honestly, it was pretty apparent from the beginning that he had a strong defense.
How much of this is about slogans that were attached early on, like the slogan about crossing state lines in the media?
Oh, yeah. I might have stepped on the. So this moment where Stelter's follow-up question is kind of funny, because he tries to like open an escape hatch for the press here, and the guy slams on him in kind of a funny way.
How much of this is about slogans that were attached early on, like the slogan about crossing state lines, and how much of this is about information that didn't come out right away, that only came out at trial, that then changed the picture?
I think trial fleshed it out, but there were an awful lot of people who knew the contours of the defense early on. The videos were out there early on, and I think there were media outlets who just did a disservice by not noting that Rittenhouse was running away. This is somebody who was not aggressively approaching people. He was running away. Even under Wisconsin self-defense law, there's some modified versions of a duty to retreat, but he was being pursued by the first person he shot very aggressively. And so these kinds of things were not amplified enough. And so that's one of the reasons why I think the verdict took millions of Americans by surprise on its own terms, separate and apart from the question of should he have been there, which I don't think he should have been there. That you don't give a 17-year-old a rifle and encourage a 17-year-old with a rifle to go to a riot. That is not what you do. But those things were being conflated with the legal elements of the crime itself.
Right, I see what you're saying. So,
I don't know. Do you have thoughts first before I go off on this? But
no, you go off first, because I know you have something there. I mean, what's interesting is this guy, it's not really related to my thoughts, which is about an Atlantic piece that David French wrote, but we'll get to that after.
Yeah. So, I mean, my thoughts on this were very similar to, from the media perspective, this was very much like the walls are closing in, or, the beginning of the end kind of mistake. Right. Where you're telling people, you're raising the expectation of one thing, and when you have information that it may not turn out that way. So I think what happened with a lot of this media coverage, I think he's exactly right. Like they spent a lot of time litigating whether or not what Rittenhouse did was moral, or whether he should have been there, or what his politics were,
right?
Whether his parents exercised good judgment in encouraging him to behave this way. That was separate and apart from what was apparent from the beginning, which was that just according to the laws of that state, he was going to have a pretty robust defense. Right. It's like, whether you agree with it or not, you could foresee that an acquittal was likely if they even brought charges at all. So that was my big criticism also, which was that it's separate and apart on what you thought about the person or the the judgment of going there in the first place, which I highly question. In fact, I already had to talk to my oldest kid about, like, here's an example of what you don't do,
Right.
Don't purposely endanger, yourself and others. Right. But legally, I mean, it's different from what the law is. And
right.
I think they spent a lot of time on that and getting that wrong, and leading readers to disappointment, right, and outrage, where they could have at the very early on reported it like, look, if no matter what your feelings are about this, he's likely not going to be convicted.
Yeah, we predicted it. I predicted it. Remember?
Did you?
Idiots. Yeah.
How a long time ago?
No, like the week before.
Oh, okay.
He said he was going to get acquitted.
Right.
And you were like, yeah, probably, but we don't know.
Right.
Because you were being more prudent.
Yeah.
Oh, edgy, I guess. Yeah.
I thought they might have gotten a hung jury on some of the charges.
Yeah.
But,
that judge was insane.
Yeah, he was a little demonstrative and clearly gunning for a future media job.
Yeah.
I think.
You heard what he said about Asian food, the Asian food delivery?
Yeah, I didn't think that was a big deal, but anyway, yeah.
It's just a weird thing to say.
It's a weird thing to say, yeah. I mean, but judges say some pretty weird stuff. They do. I mean, they're used to being, being the only person in the room whose word matters, and so they're often nuts.
Right, because they don't face any. Yeah, they don't have to tame themselves at all. Yeah,
like the freaking stream, y'all. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you, Ben Eisenberger, for.
Thank you, Ben. Yeah.
Yeah. For putting his money where his mouth is.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Any other thoughts on this, or I mean, no. What was your thing about David French?
Oh, it's interesting. No, he just wrote a piece. Well, I mean, it kind of speaks to what you were saying about the legal versus moral judgment of it. He wrote a piece, lamenting the deification of Rittenhouse, or the way he's being turned into a hero.
Mm-hmm.
Even though
agree.
He said absolutely no one should be surprised if Rittenhouse is acquitted on the most serious charges against him. Yeah. And second, regardless of the outcome of the trial, the Trumpist right is wrongly creating a folk hero out of Rittenhouse.
Right.
For millions, he's become a positive symbol, a young man of action who stepped up when the police allegedly stepped aside. But he was saying that it's a scary, not legal precedent, but I guess a scary precedent for, it's one thing to argue that the law is on Rittenhouse's side, but it is quite another to hail him as a model of civic resistance.
Well, then we get into there's a whole other realm of issues that are pretty hairy and also pretty specific to that very, very unusual situation.
Right.
This is in the wake of protests. The police, I think, almost in a kind of defiant manner, were sort of doing a bit of a slowdown. I think they were angry in advance about the criticism that they were taking over the Blake thing, and so they were kind of just they were backing up a little bit, not intervening with in cases where there were, we had like a car lot that was burned up, there were storefronts that were burned, things like that. And so that gets blasted around conservative media.
Right.
And suddenly it's vigilantes to the rescue. How often is that situation going to come up? I don't know. But yeah.
And French says, in fact, he goes, he didn't impose order. He didn't stop a riot. He left a trail of bodies on the ground. And two of the people he shot were acting on the belief that Rittenhouse himself was an active shooter. He had, after all, just killed a man. Anyway, this is interesting because French is not a liberal; he's a conservative.
Right, a Substacker.
So,
the Dispatch.
Substacker, yeah, among other things.
Yeah. But he's absolutely right that the sort of the deification of Rittenhouse. So that all of that to me is connected to this other issue, which is he stepped, like the right-wing narrative on Rittenhouse is that he stepped up when the police backed off for whatever reason, right? Like they were either because of the backlash over the Blake thing. So somebody had to step up and protect all of those businesses or whatever it was. And so that's why they're making a hero out of him, because they see this as a reaction to, the consequences of the protest. To me, the police are much to blame here. No matter what they did was petulant, I think. Yes, they were unpopular at the moment. Yes, there were a lot of people angry with them, and it was probably not, the most reassuring of situations to plunge themselves into. But they should have been like, "We got this." Do not come to the city to with guns to try to protect people, or whatever it was. Right. Yeah, that narrative's crazy too. But yeah. But there was more on the Kenosha thing. Or do we want to? Can we talk about this Paul Gosar thing quickly?
Yeah.
Wilson, can we see the Meet the Press thing on Paul Gosar?
Do we have a video on?
Yeah, it's actually it's underneath. It's your first Meet the Press clip.
Oh, the Good Sunday Morning.
Yeah.
Got it.
And this is not even about, not even so much about Paul Gosar as it is about, well, we'll talk about it in a second. Here we go.
Good Sunday morning.
So I watched this.
More evidence of just how divided we've become as a country. On Friday, a Wisconsin jury found Kyle Rittenhouse not guilty on all counts of shooting 3 men, 2 fatally, at a Kenosha protest last summer, sparked by the shooting of a black man by a white police officer. At the same time, in Georgia right now, there are 3 men who are.
So, I don't know. Is this a thing or not? Like, everybody in the Rittenhouse case was white, and yet they find a way to make it, to introduce a racial theme. Never mind. Is that a thing? Am I wrong about that or what?
I mean, I know. I think that like that. I mean, it was framed as a. I don't think it's devoid of racial content, or like, because it was a Black Lives Matter protest, right? And it was in response to police shooting of a black man. So yes, I mean I saw that Glenn had written about how the media got the race of the victims wrong, but I don't think it's quite like, it's not, race is not an irrelevant part of this.
It's not irrelevant, but you also don't have to shoehorn it in either. Like you have to go out of your way to introduce it.
Do you think so though? It's in the context of the. People who went there, right, to defend it from looting. And it is interesting that apparently those guys didn't ask for help from the venue that he was protecting.
Mm-hmm.
He went to allegedly protect, but I guess I don't really think that it's a stretch to frame it as a. I mean, it was a what? How would you describe the protest? A racial? regardless of whether or not you like the terminology. Like, how would you, the people engaging in it would have called it what, a BLM or a racial justice protest?
Right, but would you describe what Rittenhouse was doing as being an anti-BLM protest? And would you describe the incident as racial?
I think that going up to, I mean, I do think that playing the role of vigilante at a BLM or whatever, playing the role of enforcing law and order, and we do know, I know this wasn't legally admissible, but right, his comments beforehand where he saw the CVS being vandalized and talked about wanting to shoot them.
Right.
I don't know. I think it's hard to see it without the race element. And like, you know, I don't think he would have gone there. Like if there had been if he was afraid of a riot, like about a sports game, like he wouldn't have gone to, do you think he would have gone to protect property after a sports game or something?
Maybe. I mean, we don't know. These are all hypotheticals. I'm just saying, like, it's an element of the story, but it wouldn't be in paragraph 1 of my story about this. You know what I mean? Like it was constantly framed as a like we would always get his race, but not the race of the people who were shot. That was underscored constantly. They constantly called him a white supremacist, which I think they did, you know, in a way that was a little bit like
immature.
Well, it needs
or inaccurate.
Like I fell for the stories. Part of the reason I'm reacting a little bit negatively to this is that when this first came out and I read, I was under the impression that he was a militia member or something like that, and because I had seen so often him described as a white supremacist and that sort of thing, and I know personally, like I'm afraid to describe somebody as. I would be afraid to describe somebody as white supremacist because I'm afraid of libel law, you know, without it being pretty nailed down, you know. So it's a difficult question. I get the idea that there's clearly a racial angle to the case, but like, I think they went out of their way to play it up.
Yeah, I guess yeah. I mean, I do think the white supremacist term requires a little bit more. I mean, I don't think he would have gone to protect a place that from something, and I guess it is a counterfactual, but I don't see the picking up arms and even, I mean, then there's a question of like Antifa, which is not overwhelmingly black at all, right? But
well, that's kind of what I'm saying. Which is,
but
like,
it's part of.
I perceive this movement as being like an upper class white movement to me.
Well, it depends. I mean, I think I think that also gets overplayed a bit. Like, it's not just. I mean, there's the idea that like all Antifa people are white spoiled kids, like whose parents have 2 cars, which I don't think we know enough about the identity of Antifa, and I don't think it's all white either.
Right, but I wouldn't.
But it is sorry, no, you go.
No, go ahead.
But it is, I mean, it is people who, I mean, like historically, when you're a white ally, right, you also get treated differently. Like I mean, not to, like, obviously throughout history, if you're a white person who's going to defend like voting rights.
Right. Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is, like, I've seen constructions recently, like This is an example. This is yet another example of white vigilantes who strike out against black people and their white allies, right? So, in order to get that in order to compare him to like Bernie Getz, you got to use the white allies term, right? And then you got to you got to describe people like Rosenbaum and Grosskreutz and Huber as white allies, which maybe it's very variable.
Well, Rosenbaum was just insane, I think. I mean,
exactly.
Rosenbaum seemed apolitical, yeah.
I get it. I just feel like they went out of their way with this story to make sure that and look, they did it in Fox too, right? But race is what sold the story, and it was less. There's a way to tell the story that saw that as an element, but not all of it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. Yes. Someone has just said, should I ignore this? Someone said that your wealth was created and mine was inherited. I saw in the comments. I shouldn't even respond to that.
My wealth was created and yours was inherited.
Yeah. I'm just curious what their criteria for that is.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not.
I shouldn't respond to it, but sometimes I respond to trolls because I think their comments are just so funny.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I do that all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. On Twitter.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Okay. Focus back on.
Let's go back to that Chuck Todd thing.
Okay.
Probably shouldn't have even said anything about that.
Charged with an unprovoked killing of a black man, Ahmaud Arbery. And earlier in the week, just 2 House Republicans joined Democrats in censuring Republican Congressman Paul Gosar and stripping him of his committee assignments after Gosar posted an animated video showing him killing his colleague, Democrat Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. All 3 episodes, the trials at the intersection of race, guns, and self-defense, and the GOP, at least the House GOP's near unanimous dismissal of violent imagery against a Democrat, are further evidence of a fraying America. Yes, the politics of division and the weaponization of grievance have helped both parties raise money and raise the temperature in this country. But the Republican vote in the House condoning Gosar's actions was more than that. It appears to be another step towards embracing former President Trump's radical behavior. The violent rhetoric that he embraces, the coddling of the January 6 rioters, the big lie, even attacking Republicans for simply voting for a public works bill. All of it has helped lead us to this moment. What used to be dismissed as dangerous rhetoric from the far right that nobody was listening to is now being mainstreamed by the man who is reshaping the Republican Party in his own image.
Okay. So my comment here is not about Paul Gosar so much as when I saw this story, the first thing I thought is, well, I want to see that video.
Right.
Right. And it turns out it's not easy to see the video. Like, go search for it.
Yeah, he put it up, then he took it down, right? Then he put it back up again, then he took it down.
But it's not even that. Like, it's been taken down by Twitter because it violates the terms. And then look what happens when you search on Google.
What happens?
You get like 5,000 stories.
Yeah, I know. I did look for it. Yeah.
Right? And they're all headlines: House votes to punish Gosar for video depicting killing of AOC. Paul Gosar shared an anime video of himself killing AOC. Paul Gosar is censured over an anime video depicting himself killing AOC. Gosar should lose committee slots for violent AOC video. On and on and on and on. It's all contextualized, and then it's really hard to find the actual thing. Like, you know, we've gotten to the point where it's pretty routine for news stories to be all difficult to interpret without having to fight through like mountains of professional contextualizing first. Anyway, so like, can we see the actual video? Because I think if they led with this, I'm not. Let's look at the video. this is the part where he kills AOC?
He does. Oh, he does. Right. Yeah. Let's see. He does kill her, and then he almost kills Biden. Right?
That was it right there.
Yeah. Oh, really? All right. So. Where's the Biden? Oh, wait. No, here he is. Running out. Oh, yeah. You're right. So he gives Biden a warning, but he actually strikes AOC.
So my reaction to this video is this person
AOC.
probably needs treatment, right? And has some fairly repugnant and views about things like immigrants. But violence is not the first thing I get from that video. I get egomania and some other stuff, but I think if you lead with that, it makes it pretty difficult. Like if you just describe it as a video about killing AOC, it kind of doesn't represent the spirit of that video to me. I don't know. And then can we see AOC's response?
But Gosar's specialty is white supremacy with a minor in patriarchy. But Gosar's specialty is white supremacy with a minor in patriarchy.
Maybe I don't know. I feel like that's something that there's probably a better comeback than that.
Yeah, she should have made a video.
Exactly. She should have made her own anime video that was much more badass than his.
Yeah, in fact, we should encourage our viewers to do that. Make an anime video with AOC as the hero and Gosar as the victim. Are we going to get removed from YouTube or Twitter for saying this? I was just kidding.
Maybe.
I was saying don't do that. When I say victim, I mean victim of mocking. We should make a video of AOC calling him a white supremacist, patriarchal white supremacist.
A white supremacist who minored in patriarchy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I mean, come on. Is out of 100 people on an Amtrak train between, I don't know, let's say New York and Chicago, how many people are going to respond positively to AOC in that situation, to that response? 2?
Yeah, I don't think it's the most I don't think it's the most in touch response. I mean, even if she wants to, which is fine, it's her prerogative, of course, and I understand feeling targeted because she is this kind of avatar for the right. But I would say that maybe that's not the best discourse for most people.
You gotta this is why you gotta have a sense of humor about this stuff, right? Like if you don't know how to, like, this is all playing out in public. Who would I like to see president? Certainly not either of those people, frankly, but definitely not Paul Gosar.
Right.
But in terms of this Twitter battle, like, first of all, suppressing it to the point where you can't see it.
Yeah.
Right. Which everybody's going to connect with the Democratic Party.
Right.
They are. Right. And then responding to it like, he's a white supremacist who minored in patriarchy. And then you go and you look at the video and it's that, like, that is a bad look. It just
couldn't tell. I mean, I'm not defending Gosar, but I could not tell that it was her.
I couldn't even see where the violence was. I mean, I could see that he's blasting somebody, and who it was, I don't know. If the news stories didn't point that out for me, like, I wouldn't have found out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I just do think, I'm not sure how many people that landed for, the patriarchal white supremacist language. This just reminds me of why Trump had to take out Soleimani, because the power of meme.
Well, you got to. We're in the internet age. You have to learn how to, deal on that level. And doing a TikTok of yourself saying, "Hey, you're a minor in patriarchy," like that shit just doesn't go over. And it's
funny because she really is good at playing the media.
She was good at it.
She was good at it, maybe. Yeah. She used to be the Trump. She used to be like a Trump. Remember
Exactly.
they were like, when they went after her for that dancing video where she just looked like happy and attractive and carefree, and they leaked it.
Yeah, and then there were people in her own party talking, like, leaking news about how she's keeping the clothes from her photo shoots and everything like that. And I thought she came out. Wouldn't you? Right? Yeah. I thought she came out she was very skillful in the early days. Right. I even wrote a column about how she was killing everybody at the Twitter game. Once upon a time. And now, and it's like she's completely lost the ability to understand where people are on a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, there was another one you wanted to talk about with Christie, right?
Oh yeah, it's not that interesting. We might as well, but we can watch it since we're talking about what's going to happen in the next presidential election.
Oh,
but yes. I do think that she should have just ignored it, honestly. Just strategically, but maybe it's good for rallying. I don't know. I think it probably works on a very small population of people, her response to that and making it a big story. But I think maybe in terms of people in general, they're probably it's not the most important thing going on. Not to use that argument, which you hate so much, can be abused, that argument.
Which one?
Why are you talking about this while you can be talking about that?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't think you want members of Congress even theoretically going there, right?
Yeah.
They should not be doing this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I get that it's supposed to be kind of funny, and I mean, it is a little bit funny, but probably
it's not intentionally funny, though. I would say it's funny because it's so stupid.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. It's a little bit like Trump. It's kind of hard to sort out what's intentionally funny and what's not sometimes. Yeah. So you could. This is a situation where I think you would probably want somebody like Pelosi to go over and talk to the other side and say
Paul.
Yeah. And I
think that's his first name, right? Yeah, Paul Gosar,
or McCarthy or whoever, right? And just say, look, let's just have a ceasefire on videos that show us killing each other. You can do it's pull my finger funny, exactly, right? You can do this, but just make it without the sword going through the head or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Instead, they did this. They blew the story up all over the place. There's a million headlines about it, and what it looks like to the outside news consumer is we're terrified of this. We're so scared of this content that we're going to suppress it. We're not going to let you see it. We're going to describe it in this way that's really inflammatory and serious, right? And it just looks like you can't take a joke,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's look at the Christie thing.
All right, let's look at the Christie thing.
Republicans say they feel momentum heading into the midterms, pointing to Glenn Youngkin's victory in the Virginia governor's race as a model for how to win the base and independents. Joining me now to discuss, former governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie, author of the new book, Republican Rescue, Saving the Party from Truth Deniers, Conspiracy Theorists, and the Dangerous Policies of Joe Biden. Governor, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Thanks, Brett. Thanks for having me.
I've been talking to a number of Republicans as they've watched your various appearances talking about the book, and they said one question kept on coming up, and they said, what's his play? What's his political play? So let me ask you how they asked it. What's your play?
It's such an insulting question.
My play is to try to make sure we get back to winning again as a party. You know, between 2018 and 2020, Brett, we lost the House, the Senate, and the White House. The only other time in the Republican Party's history that that's happened was 1930 to 1932 with Herbert Hoover. And so we then had the Democrats occupying the White House for 28 of the next 36 years. And it just seems to me that our country wouldn't be able to survive this Democratic Party occupying the White House for 28 of the next 36 years. So I want us to stop looking backwards, start looking forward, laying out a contrast to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, laying out what's wrong with what they're doing and what's right with our prescription. We do that, we're going to win the House and Senate back in 22 and lots of governorships and be in great position for 2024. If we don't,
so are you
we're going to become a grievance party.
Are you considering running for president?
Sure, I would consider it, Brett, and will consider it, but I won't make any decision until the end of 2022. And this year, what I'm focusing on is I'm co-chairing the victory fundraising for the Republican governors, and I'm co-chairing the effort to fund Republican redistricting of congressional districts with former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. We have to win first in 2022 before we ever consider 2024. But even more importantly, Brett, we've got to stop looking backwards, stop the grievance politics and all the rest, and start moving forward and giving people a positive
I can't anymore. Can we stop
what we
this?
want to do compared to the disaster.
Wilson, can we see the 2016 video?
It is funny hearing him talk.
Which one's that one?
It's right underneath Chris Christie's play, the political story.
Got it.
Play. What's your play? We should use that as code. For what? Look, I'm not sure.
Well, you know why they're saying what's his play? It's because this was his play 5 years ago.
Right.
Hang on a minute. Chris Christie endorses Donald Trump. Okay.
They made such a good Curb Your Enthusiasm video about that. Did you see that?
No, what did they say?
Oh no, it was just a video of him like saying something, not announcing Chris Christie for any. Didn't he give Chris Christie some terrible job? Some terrible appointment?
No. It's even funnier than that.
I've got to know all the people on that stage.
Oh, but they did a great with that. Right. Yeah,
I've been on that stage. I've gotten to know all the people on that stage, and there is no one who is better prepared to provide America with the strong leadership that it needs, both at home and around the world, than Donald Trump. He is, looking at the 5 people on that stage last night, the clear standout, and the person who will do exactly what needs to be done to make America a leader around the world again. He'll provide strong, unequivocal leadership. He will do what needs to be done to protect the American people first and foremost, both in the homeland
8 seconds,
and in creating jobs for this country. And he will make sure that people around the world know that America keeps its word again. Donald Trump is someone who, when he makes a promise, he keeps it. I experienced that over my
Look at him. He's like, really? Look, Trump is like just surprised that he said that. He's like,
really?
Wow.
Donald Trump is someone
he's
who
like
keeps his word.
Honored.
Okay.
He's like, I didn't see that one coming, Chris.
So what's the name of Christie's new book now? Hang on a second.
What is it? It is Republican Rescue: Saving the Party from Truth Deniers, Conspiracy Theorists, and the Dangerous Policies of Joe Biden.
Okay, so this was the guy who remember was the first legitimate, respectable politician to break ranks and endorse Donald Trump, which was huge. Then remained part of his team while Trump did things like suggest that Ted Cruz was the Zodiac killer and killed John F. Kennedy, right?
I mean, where was he when those things happened?
Was he in the bathroom? Did he miss that part?
I meant where was Ted Cruz when those things happened?
Where was Ted Cruz? Oh, right. Yes, that's true. And remember what was so funny about that was his wife answering that, like, I've known him like all my adult life, and I know exactly what kind of person he is, and that doesn't. It's such a non-denial. Right? It was a non-denial denial, right?
The LBJ thing with the pig effing.
Right. Yeah. But she didn't even deny it. That was the funny thing. She
Right.
used language that, so clearly, like, he kept his mouth shut because he thought he was going to get like Secretary of State or some huge job, or the VP even. But, and this all came out in his own book.
People are pointing out. Sorry, it was Ted's father. Apparently,
Ted's father. Well, no, he killed JFK.
Right. Yeah, Ted was the Zodiac killer. Ted's father killed JFK.
I remember that because I was in Indiana when Trump was doing this. So I was with the people who were sticking microphones in Cruz's face during that whole thing. Anyway,
good point from Delbert Newman, though. If any politician was the Zodiac killer, Ted Cruz is pretty high on the list.
Except for the part where he was born 2 years after the killings ended.
Right.
But yeah.
But besides that.
Beside that. Anyway, so in his book, Christie decides the moment where he's like waiting to see what job he gets for after Trump gets elected. And so they keep calling him and saying, yeah, we're still trying to figure out, like, how would you feel about, the ambassadorship to, and they named some pretty.
Wasn't it the Vatican?
No, that came next. That's what's so funny. They named a high ranking, like a more serious country first, and he was
than the Vatican.
Yeah, no, and he was like, well, maybe, yeah, sure, but he was clearly gunning for something more, right?
Right.
And then they called him up and they were like, yeah, we're still kind of going through it. How would you feel about ambassador to Vatican City?
Right.
And he was like, well, okay, or can I talk to him? And then it was nothing. They just didn't call him back after that. I mean, they completely ghosted him.
Right. And it's but it's also like an uncomfortable position for a Catholic to be in, to be like complaining about being the ambassador to the Vatican.
Oh, of course, absolutely, yeah. No, they did that, and they clearly did that as intentionally. Like there was a thing when he first met Christie. Christie has a violent allergy to shellfish, and Trump ordered for everybody, and he ordered like some shellfish dish for Christie, and Christie dutifully sat there eating it, making himself sick. Yes. Yeah.
What?
This is all described in his own book. It was
Oh
amazing.
my
like,
God.
yeah. So that's why people are saying, what's his play now? Because this is a person who is willing to like eat stuff he's allergic to in order to be Donald Trump's right hand man.
That is so sad. That is
right?
so sad. Yeah. Someone wrote a very stupid fat shaming comment, but it's kind of funny.
What does it say?
How can a whale be allergic to shellfish? It's kind of funny in the Gosar way.
I'm sorry. Yeah. No, look, Chris Christie's. He's not wrong that the Republican Party needs to get away from truth denying and conspiracy theory and all that stuff.
And grievance politics, just because. Well, I guess no. What's weird is that when he says grievance politics, he means Yeah, I know that's his lane.
That's his specialty.
But I think he means just grievance politics over the election in particular.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Not over using your tax dollars to build better schools and urban neighborhoods or whatever, right?
Yes.
God, I hate them all. All right. I guess that's it, right?
He's not socially conservative enough, though, I don't think, to win the Republican primary. Yeah.
He's not anything enough to win anything.
Yeah, you're right, yeah.
I was in Ames, Iowa in 2016 because he was campaigning. Remember, he was supposed to be the big thing. Like, he was on the cover of Time magazine and all that stuff. Remember that was the title of Time's story, "The Elephant in the Room." That was the headline.
Terrible. How could they say that? I'm just kidding.
Well, but he went. He actually, I think he liked that because it got him. Sorry. It's all semantics, Matt. When Ted Cruz was born and the Zodiac killer's killings ended are minor details in the story. That's probably true. That's probably true.
Yeah.
But he sat in a park in Ames, Iowa, with his hand out like an iguanodon. You know how they have their fingers out like this?
Yeah.
And like nobody in the park came to him. Like there were people like, hey, it's Chris Christie. Like, you know, they were trying to get interest.
And no one would touch him?
No, yeah. Finally, they managed to get a couple of people to come up to him, but they wouldn't vote. They weren't like his voters. They you know, they got a couple of shots, but he
were they people like me who would get their picture taken ironically with him?
Yeah. There was a little bit of that going on, I think, probably, but like he has no pulse politically in the Republican Party,
right?
So, and for him to be like, I'm going to be the guy who's going to end conspiracy theory politics after what he did in 2016.
Yeah, I know. It's like, it's not as if Donald Trump was, that's why all these books are so hilarious. It's not as if like Donald Trump was a different man then.
Right. Come on.
He wasn't some like reserved statesman.
I mean, I still think the worst thing that Trump ever did was the birther thing. And that happened before the election even started, you know?
Yeah. Although remember Hillary's response to that? She was like, I have no reason. It's like they asked if Obama was Muslim. She's like, I have no reason to doubt that him at his word. It was like, it was like, and Hillary just can't do that. Like Bill Clinton is so skillful at that, but Hillary just looks so passive aggressive.
They were, come on, they were so over the top in 2008 with that stuff. Remember they leaked the photo of him in a dashiki.
Yeah.
You know, and then they on Martin Luther King Day, they're like, you know, you need a president to get that stuff passed. And there was this whole thing about how I forget what the whole theme was, but they were awful on that stuff. And of
course, the RFK thing.
What was the RFK thing again?
Actually, couldn't drop out. They were like, you don't buy the party unity thing. She's like, I don't, because you know my husband didn't drop out until June, and June. We all remember what happened in June. Bobby Kennedy was killed. Yeah.
Why is Katie knitting? Are you knitting?
No, I just picked up a knitting thing, but I'm not doing it.
I see. Okay.
Because my knitting thing fell.
Can I talk about the crappy journalism of Rolling Stone behind the story about the Duke lacrosse gang rapist? I don't think I was there for that one. I also wasn't there for the UVA one. I might have been there for the Duke one, but I don't even know who wrote that story. Does anyone know who wrote that story? No. She's knitting a spunt wing. I would wear it.
I should knit you something for the holidays. Want a scarf? No, he doesn't want a scarf. No, but it was a spunt. You'd wear a spunt wig?
Yes.
No, but it was she's like, we all remember what happened to Bobby Kennedy. It was so forced. Basically, she was saying like Obama could get shot and killed, so I can't drop.
Yeah, and you know, don't anybody think to do that or anything.
Yeah.
Right.
It was June. We all remember. Oh, June. My husband. Oh, June. Yeah.
My spuntry tis of thee. No spuntry for old men.
Yeah.
All right. That was Monday morning. Thank you very much, folks. We went over this time.
Oh, yeah. We went over. Yeah. Thank you, guys. We'll see you later this week. We will have an episode this week.
We will.
Even though it's Thanksgiving.
It'll be interesting even. So we'll talk to you soon.
Signing off.